What a nice opportunity to honor the service of so many people. So thank you guys for that. Listen, it is my pleasure to have a chance to introduce our next speaker. And how many of you guys hung out last night for the dance? Got a chance to? Yeah, that was awesome. John Early, I saw him today. He's sore all over from dancing last night. And the people that danced with him, their toes are sore all over today for that. So John, that's good. But Tony, I'll invite you to start coming on up to the stage. Guys, Tony Barker comes to us from Georgetown, just north of Austin. That's the Georgetown I'm talking about here, if that helps you guys out. Georgetown, north of Austin. Tony is a comedian. He is a songwriter. He's an author and just an incredible guy. And he was talking to me a little bit about this opportunity. He said it's been building up for a long time to get to the point to stand on the stage and talk to people about this message. And he is just passionate. You'll hear it come through in his message. You're really in for a treat today. So please give a warm welcome to Tony Barker.
Wow. Thank you. Didn't plan this part, but I would like to thank Garen for inviting me up here and for doing everything he's done. Also want to thank Jeff and Justin for calming my nerves by being amazing with the audio-visual stuff. And also want to thank very much Renee. I'm a type 2 diabetic. I got promoted recently. And I have a lot of people in my life that tell me good things about how to live. That is the best presentation I have ever heard on health and nutrition and sleep. That is the best. So I urge you to click, grease up your Googler and Finder, figure out whatever you got to do. So yes, we did do some music right here on this stage last night, and it was a lot of fun. But what I don't have is a clicker, but I do have, there we go. Another part of my background that is a little more relevant to what I'd like to talk about today and to the challenges that we face today as a nation. For several years, I worked with a company called Resolution Solutions. It started out as a conflict resolution company for businesses and families and people, that sort of stuff. But we ended up being called upon to train the other direction. Okay. Law enforcement and fire departments and medical personnel, EMS, clergy, any first responder that we could reach. And we did that for several years. We worked with the West Central Texas Council of Governments, traveling around a 19-county area and presenting information on trauma-informed care and self-care. That's a very important piece of that. And to this day, it remains some of the most rewarding and important work I've ever done. So here I am talking to Rotary International about civility. That could be a little funny and a little bit redundant. Y'all are pretty good at that, and I got proof. Because you are the organization, the people that introduced the world to the four-way test. These 4 questions are hugely important, and I don't know if everybody is really up on the origin of how this 4-way test came about. I'd like to touch on it briefly because it's really important, again, to what we're talking about and the mission that we have in front of us. What happened was in 1932, a man named Herbert Taylor was asked to rescue a business that was facing bankruptcy. And I'm sure he did all the good business stuff. He looked at the profit and loss statement, he checked out the business plan, he cut expenses, and he did all that stuff. But what he focused on as a priority was to create this culture of excellence within his people that worked for him. He got them to buy into these 4 questions and make them a priority and incorporate them in all of their decisions throughout the day and turn things around quite dramatically. Can you imagine that? The courage of a CEO that takes his attention off of the production line and getting increased efficiency, and he puts his focus and his priorities on, my apologies, I try to do this without that, but something as intangible as asking for a better attitude. That was his priority. That was his main focus. That's what he did. And if you think about how courageous that was, remember in 1932, the Great Depression was roaring. It was cooking along, and it would have been very easy to focus on the fear and the despair and the trouble that was going on all around him. But he chose to prioritize what really mattered, and then the improvements to the bottom line simply followed from that. And the magic of that effort is that it worked. It absolutely worked. Not only was the company returned to profitability, but the additional benefits piled up so dramatically that it became a case study for colleges and business schools around the world. These 4 questions were adopted by Rotary in 1943, and since then it's been reprinted thousands of times in hundreds of languages all around the world because it works. And it turns out that if you spell out your objectives clearly and you convince people of the advantages, then you also provide a framework for effective action. Good things can happen on a large scale. And this is the essence of what I'm calling the civility plan. It's my attempt to encourage a national conversation about the conversations that we tend to have these days. I want to be very clear. I am not about changing anybody's mind about anything you are passionate about. It's vitally important, however, that we dial down the level of nastiness that is kind of in danger of becoming normal. That can't be normal, and that's the actual fight we're in. In fact, in my opinion, that is the most significant crisis we have ever faced as a nation, ever. In my opinion, I believe it's the one thing that will determine whether we survive as a nation. I know that sounds a little strong, but here's my perspective on this. No single issue, not one issue, not terrorism, not immigration, not healthcare, not the economy, none of it is too big for America to deal with if we conduct ourselves like rational adults. That's really all it takes. That's my, thank you. I didn't have that in the script there, but thank you for that. But if we can't do that, if we keep turning every opponent into an enemy and every disagreement into this life or death battle of good versus evil, if we keep doing that by habit, any one of those issues can sink us. And sometimes it feels like we're not even trying anymore to find the best answer. Feels like we're spending all our energy and resources into making sure our side wins and their side loses. And that's the main thing. And the guy with the best answer, he left the room a long time ago. He's in the back hiding under the bed, hoping the house doesn't burn down around him. So, but after all of that, I do have some good news. And I'd like to go and talk about all these individual things together, but after all that, maybe we need to just get it in a big, massive dose. So here's some of the good news. One thing is, it is just not as bad as it seems, especially if you're a bit of a news junkie like me. It's just not as bad as it seems. It's important, and we got to work on it, but it's not as bad as it seems. The other thing to know is that there are things we can do to pull ourselves out of this, or at least improve things dramatically. And the other thing that I get a lot of encouragement about is that we are not alone in this effort. There are a lot of organizations and associations, Rotary obviously being one of them, that are on our side in this effort to just make things a little better. So let's go back to this first one, that it's not as bad as it seems. I spent a lot of years in the advertising industry, mostly in radio. I created hundreds of commercials, and I noticed a pattern. Identify a problem, and then tell people how you can help. That's basis of all commercials. The next time you're confronted with one and you don't swipe right, listen to that. You identify a problem, and then you become the solution. The other thing is you stir up fear and then become the hero. If I had a client in the pest control company, for example, I guarantee you that commercial started out with our big voice guy from the radio station asking, "Are spiders crawling in and out of your children's nostrils every night?" Now notice that I did not make a claim. It is illegal to just straight up lie in an advertisement, and that includes political advertising. And now that sounds a little strange, but it is the truth. And in the hands of professionals, the truth I promise you that brisket can be sliced pretty thin. So I didn't make a statement. I just asked a question. Are your kids okay? Spider's doing all right? Everybody's good? Are you sleeping with fighters? But it did stir up the fear just for a second there. There's 5 moms out in the hallway right now. They're Googling up pest control companies and dialing them as fast as their little fingers will work. And that's the answer. All you have to do is call 1-800-TONY Barker saves your baby. And the whole world looks wonderful again. It's just marvelous. Woohoo, excuse me. Yeah. I'm sorry, he got a little creeped out there. Apologize. Creeped me out when I saw my dad do it too. He's going, can we go back to the spiders? Anyway, I had a slide, by the way, with spiders on it and nostrils and stuff, but it was just too gruesome, so I deleted it. You're welcome. But here's the thing. When advertisers get really good at what they do, they discover that advertising for radio is not the most money they can make. They go where the real money is. And where's the real money? Politics. So now, these professionals' job is to get you worried about toxic waste driving down your neighborhood on its way to dump gunk in your hot tub. Grandma going over the cliff in a wheelchair. Remember that one? Yeah. And if you don't vote for the right hero, it is entirely possible that all your children could end up being born naked. I mean, it could happen. So all these highly skilled professional manipulators banging us over the head with political messages has led us to this version of America. It's not actually America, I just whipped it up. But information-wise, this is kind of what's happening. We're all holed up in one or the other of the buildings. Obviously, this is an oversimplification. But while we're holed up in our side, whatever our side is, we don't really know what's going on the other side. We think we know because these manipulators are really good about telling us what they are up to. They're really good at that. As part of my studies for this civility plan, I've been working on this for many, many years. I read and I listen to a lot of political messaging from both sides, right and left, centrists and extremists, and I've been told by people that take themselves very seriously that the other side hates America and they're trying to destroy our country. Now, the R's tell me that the D's are doing it, and the D's tell me that the R's are doing it, and if you do the math on that, that is 340 million Americans all drilling holes in the boat just so the other guys drown. And it's ridiculous, and it's not that bad, okay? It's just not that bad. What is happening is that the people that are selling fear and anger are really good at it. On the other side of the radio, the listener gets a hit of dopamine because when they get that good mad going, that dopamine kicks in. And it's the same chemical that makes chocolate and cocaine and a Dallas Cowboys touchdown feel so good. Right? It's the exact same dopamine hit, and it's every bit as addictive. And they know it, and they build careers on it, and they do it because it works. It doesn't work on everybody, and thank you, Lord, for that. But it doesn't even really work on most people. But anybody that does, once somebody or some group gets caught up in it, the thinking part of the brain turns off, and the emotion monkey is driving the bus, and that ain't good. But once it happens, that person or that group can be convinced to donate money. They can be convinced to sign up for more messaging. They can show up for protests and rallies, and they can vote against them, because that's the big thing. But they, everybody wants to define they. I'm about to. They are that small group at the very top of the building. Really? That's the truth. And they get a lot of publicity because they are loud. And they get covered, and they end up in the news, and they go viral because, generally speaking, if you let them run around long enough, one of them's going to do or say something stupid, and then they become the straw man that the other guy uses to say, well, you see how they are? That's how they are. That one guy there that looks like an idiot, he's them. And that them is the problem. So I don't want to lose the good news part of this story, because there is plenty of good news, and there is an antidote to this stuff, okay? And we'll talk about that in just a second, but I feel like I have to mention one further additional level of the ick. So far, I've been talking about professionals that go from media into the politics world, and they're just hired That's their job. They're hired to make their guy look good and the other guy look bad, and it's just a job, and I don't begrudge anybody a living. I just truly do not. But there are, however, we have to take account of this, some PhD level master manipulating bad actors that work for countries that don't like us, and additionally in some hot spots around the world, and they know what buttons to push, and they're really good at making those buttons even more nasty. They use the whole R&D conflict for their own purposes, but they don't care who wins. They have no dog in the fight. All they want is for half of America to keep throwing rocks at the other half. They don't have to do anything. They don't have to physically attack us. They just sit back and laugh and wait while we destroy ourselves, and they can save all their rocks for the last man standing over here. It's that strategy. So again, here's the good news. There are things we can do. One thing is, and just know this, we can beat this. This is not insurmountable. We can beat this. Just knowing that we're under this attack from these forces is our best weapon against it. I've never been bitten by a scorpion out in the middle of the floor. It's the guy in your boots and your gloves that made me use my construction language. Sorry, Mom. So here's the thing. If you don't like what's happening, stop playing the game. It's that simple. Not easy, but it is that simple. Just don't feed yourself with this sort of stuff. Good nutrition, mental nutrition is what we're talking about here. And if you want to go farther and put more energy into it and help your country, you can ask other people to stop playing that game. Just be aware of the game. You could share the video if you want to do. We're making videos. There's 500 cameras making me nervous around here. So if you see something on the news that makes you angry, just know that it's probably not an accident that you found that. Okay, so there's your knowledge of what's happening. It's probably not an accident. If you get angry every day at 4 o'clock, I promise you somebody's putting that thing on whatever it is. If you just get off work and go get mad and that's your habit, or God forbid, you wake up and you grab your phone and you put on a bad mood before you put on your socks, that is not an accident, I promise you. The algorithm and the manipulators that manipulate the algorithm, they know what you like, largely because you tell them. Every time you click on something, you're asking them, hey, I like that more. You might not like it, you might hate it because, but that dopamine hit makes you click on that thing and they go, yeah, you like that? And we're going to send you more of them. But that also, the reverse of that coin means that you have an opportunity. You have the power to make some big changes in your life and stop that. Another thing we can do, by the way, is don't click based on any emotion, okay? Anger is a big button, but it's not the only one. And again, please hear me. I am not asking you to stop being passionate about the things that matter to you. We need that. We absolutely need that in America. Just know this, that particular worm might have a hook on it. And the bigger and the juicier that worm is, the easier it is to hide the hook. So take a breath and make sure that the thinking part of your brain is engaged, and then let it rip. Go out and do whatever it is you want to do. Make a difference. Make something happen. Just watch out for those hooks, because addicts don't just wake up one day as addicts. It is a process, and it is something that comes to us. So what do we do about it? I would like to introduce to you some genuine, real deal internet heroes. All right. Don't fall in love. This is some AI-generated cuteness here, okay? I went to ChatGPT and I said, get me some cuteness going on up here. But there's a serious message behind this. And I'm asking you to find some more internet kittens. Because if you're clicking on this, then you're not spending time doom scrolling. You know, that's actually a thing. That's a word, doom scrolling. Ugh. But anytime you spend not doing that, you're helping train that algorithm, and you're giving it a statement. Hey, we like to laugh. We like to have a good time. We like to listen to music. And sometimes every once in a while, we like to go, oh. I really, in my script here, it says, everybody, 1, 2, 3, oh. Oh, you guys did great. So that's a part of the civility plan itself, just making better choices, okay? So like I say, there are things that we can do And it is possible, and it is absolutely necessary. Not super easy. It's simple, but maybe not easy. Basically, what I'm asking the United States of America to do, my beloved country, is to go on a hate diet. Oh, thank you. You guys are clapping all out of order here, but I appreciate it. Thank you very much. And the thing that makes that hate diet different is that we don't have a supervillain that we can all unite us in our glorious struggle against it. There's no Saddam Hussein. There's no Hitler. There's no bin Laden. It's just millions of America making better decisions over and over again. Unfortunately, according to the American Diabetes Association, we are really bad at that. We are not great at doing it. She's like, no. So yes, it is going to take some effort, but it's worth it. And that's the part that makes good people come up to me all the time and wish me well, but constantly remind me that this effort is going to fail. It doesn't have a chance, can't happen, ain't going to do it. People are people, they tell me. We've been this way for 10,000 years, and it's never going to change. That is a garbage argument, and I'm not buying it. I can't imagine anything more disrespectful of the soldiers who died fighting for our freedoms in war after war after war. And they want us to give up just because it's easier to surrender than to stop saying hateful stuff about our fellow Americans? Fish feathers. I ain't having it. Not doing it. And I hope you don't either. Also, I'm not going for 100% victory in this. It's just going to happen. We may not get rid of all of it, but again, I believe we can dial it down, and I believe we can dial it down significantly. There are some knuckleheads out there that just like to scrap. I have seen them. And as an American, I would never, ever advocate silencing those voices. We need to hear the things they are concerned about. I'm just in favor of not letting them sit at the big kids' table until they learn to not throw their mashed potatoes around at everybody. So, yeah, we might not reach utopia. You know, it's possible. I don't know that we would want to. It sounds kind of boring to me, but I think we're at a point in history where we get to choose the next step in human evolution. We get to decide where we go from here. We get to use the internet, the same tool that brings us all that fear and hate and anger, to help us influence things in the other direction. So, in my opinion, go get them, Scrappy. Give them a good licking. Use the real ones, though. Don't get licked by a robot. That's terrible. So, I'd like to share some big advantages to making those changes. So, here's kind of the why of the civility plan. Here's why. We know how. Everybody knows that it's a good thing. I'm not up here trying to tell you that my Sunday school teacher said we should need more civility, so we should do it. But here's why. It's healthier. Your body will reward you for not walking around with your adrenaline set on full carbonation all the time. It's your heart and your lungs and your blood system and everything about you being you will appreciate the fact that you've made this effort. The other thing is the people around you will become easier to deal with. If you just have a little bit more relaxation in your life, we might not be aware of what this constant consternation is doing to us, but when so many things feel like a threat, a life or death, trauma-inducing incident, the fight or flight mode just stays on all the time. It's there, it's just underneath the surface, and it affects our ability to process even neutral things in a neutral way. Have you ever noticed that when you don't like someone, everything they do makes you mad? Look at a guy drinking coffee like he owns the place. Yeah, you've seen it. I've done it. So when you successfully make this shift, you have a little bit more relaxed body language, and your facial expression is a little bit more open, which leads to people around you being a little bit less defensive, and that makes it easier to relax, which makes it easier to be open and all that sort of stuff. And it just works that way. This guy has no idea why everybody around him is such a jerk. He doesn't even know. He is not aware. Like, everybody's so mean all the time. Hi, I'm Tony. Yeah, I don't care. Nice to meet you. Remember when you were a kid and somebody told you, your face is going to stick that way? I'm here to tell you, it can happen. I used to live in a trailer park. It can happen. But that also means that this can happen as well. This can happen also. Where's the Post Club? Is the Post Club in here? I don't know. But if you're here, you'll probably recognize this guy. He's a friend of mine. In full disclosure, he's part of my extended family. His name is Chip Polk. And he's with the Ragtown Gospel Theater, if you've ever been to. He's the guy that does the music, and he's kind of one of the big movers and shakers. And he's just a pleasant guy. Look at that grin. He's looking for a place to smile. He wants a reason to smile. So here's proof that all of that can happen on a larger scale. Every December, millions of people that share my faith system, and millions of people that don't, they start opening doors for each other. They let people in traffic go ahead of them. And they do other acts of kindness that sometimes make the news. Mostly it doesn't. But all I'm asking is that we don't stop that in January. Let's pretend that Santa Claus is watching all year long. Let's keep that going. Because that will become the culture of America. I don't know if you're familiar with Seth Godin, but he says that culture is the simple statement of this. People like us do things like that. And we can make that difference if we individually choose it. Maybe we help get the word out and all that sort of stuff. Our civility plan website has a few different ways to get involved. And some of it's as easy as just dialing up those internet kittens. Some of it might look like downloading a PDF of a letter or writing your own letter that just congratulates and thanks some public figure for doing the right thing when maybe they didn't have to, or they chose peace when the world would have not convicted them for throwing a punch. We're also starting a newsletter so I can let people know when this video gets ready or when new ones come out. I have a bunch of stuff, and I'm hoping that there will be enough people there to make politicians brave. Because mostly these politicians, mostly they hear from the top of the building people. They're the ones that write letters. They're the ones that go do and vote and show up for rallies and write letters and get involved in politics. And there's not and what happens is that most of the people in America, that's 340 million people according to the last census, most of us just want to go to work and feed our kids and put our feet up on the furniture. And that brings us to point 3. We are not alone in this effort. We're starting a list on the website that I call Allies of Civility. Again, thank you, Rotary. You're high on that list of Allies of Civility. But it's a reference, it's going to be a reference of sociologists, psychologists, conflict resolution specialists, and thought leaders from all over the world that I've run across in my years of reading and preparing for this moment right here. Some lean kind of conservative and some lean kind of liberal, but none of them demonize or dehumanize people that disagree with them. None of them. And every single one of them have left me with the feeling of, well, that's a good idea. We ought to do that. Maybe it doesn't take much more than that. But it's taken a while because I have to vet each one, because you never know what, from the title, what they really stand for. And I don't want to promote the Society for Improving stuff if what their real agenda is throwing rocks at the Society for Improving Different stuff, right? So I'm gonna look them pretty close and see where they're at and all that sort of stuff. Again, I'm more interested in solutions than sparring. So here's one I found a while back, quite a number of years ago. I don't know if you've ever heard of the Problem Solvers Caucus. It's a group of politicians, Republicans and Democrats, that have publicly committed to work together in whatever way that looks like anytime they can. Because of what Republicans and Democrats stand for, they can't always vote the same way. There's a different conflict there. But whenever they vote apart, I bet they do it with some amount of civility. I'm sure they're being civil about it. So I hope you do sign up for the mailing list so I can introduce you to these amazing resources, maybe suggest some of your own, maybe help me vet these things. But I'd like to leave you with a couple of illustrations of what I would call transformational thinking. Years ago, I was asked to write some speculative scripts that would address road rage. It never really made the big leagues, but one story in particular kind of stuck with me. Imagine you had a car in traffic cut you off horribly, as opposed to cutting you off gently. I don't know. But let's say you had to slam on brakes and swerve and all of this kind of stuff happens. What if you had some magical way of knowing that that car was a young mother rushing her injured child to the hospital? She's in full panic, fight or flight, survival mode, and she's going as fast as she can. Do you have the grace in your heart to give her a little break right there? If you don't, please don't tell me about it, because that means you're a psychopath and I don't want to talk to you. I still love you because my king said I have to love you, but I'm going to love you from way over there. How about the oops guy? We've all been the oops guy, and we need a break in those moments. Can you give a break also at the time? So obviously not every driver is a young mother in a panic, but also not every driver that oopses needs to be cursed back to the 7th generation of his bloodline. And it's not really easy. It takes a little practice. It does, but it pays off. Especially if there's kids in the car watching you and getting their clues about how to behave. Right? Sorry, Dad. Here's one that might get me run out of town, right? Everybody got their ropes not handy. No one can make you angry. Woo! That's not possible. No one in this room, including me, it has never happened in our entire lives. The fact is that something happens and then we react to it. Now that happens so fast and so intensely that it seems like it's instantaneous and automatic and inevitable. But the truth is, the thing that happens is entirely separated from our reaction to it. Jack Canfield, he's the chicken soup for the soul guy. He has a later work called The Success Principles. Can't recommend that highly enough. But he simplified all of this in his later work, and it looks like a mathematical formula. E plus R equals O. And the spelling of that is that the event, any event, traffic, your boss, some idiot in a ponytail telling you how to live, whatever the event is, plus your response to that event equals the outcome you end up with, the outcome that you walk away from. And again, this is not easy. It takes practice, and we are going to all fail, but the important part is that we keep trying. So take a beat, as the youngins call it these days. And the idea is to put something, anything in between the event and the response. Whatever that is, just choosing to do that can become the habit that you have decided that you want to have in your life. Put something between the event and your response. Anything at all. The first thing I would recommend is take a breath, okay? Let's do this right now, if you don't mind. Let's do this with me. Deepest breath, let it out. Yeah. You can feel a difference, just a little bit of a difference. And if you do that between A and B, that can make a difference. And that's the secret major weapon for everybody from the Navy SEALs. They teach this in Navy SEAL training, all the way down to Mom, who didn't swap you for a dog and kick that dog because of that thing you know you did. Oh, sorry, maybe that was just me. Never mind. But again, that's just wrong. So another possibility is count to 10, or count to 3, or just say the word count, or count to 1,000, whatever you want to do. Just anything at all that you can do. These are just suggestions of something to put between the event and your response to it. Here's one of the things we can do. Everybody's from Texas. You can bless their hearts. We're in Texas. Everybody knows what that means. You ain't getting away with nothing. Bless his heart. He's just dumber than a sack full of hammers. Now, if you're watching this video from some foreign land like Oklahoma or Dubai or whatever, just know that if you come to Texas, we are happy to have you. And we invite you to drive on Interstate 35. Just do it right, because you do it wrong, and they will bless your heart in a San Antonio second. Now, here's one I use really as a last resort, okay? This is something that you want to, make sure that you're aware of your surroundings and make sure you don't have kids in the car. I call them poo-poo people. You, imagine this. Somebody cuts you off and you go, you are poo-poo people. You can't be mad after you use that phrase. You can't. It stops right there. Now, maybe you're not used to that kind of language. Maybe that's just going over the line. I did run that past the censors, by the way. But the essence of this is like the internet kittens. This is just a placeholder for inject a sense of humor. Find something else. Make a different choice in that moment between the event and the response. Okay, so we're using humor to reboot your brain into a little bit more reasonable space. Another thing that happened to me, I'm driving in Houston, and something happened way up there where I can't see anything, and it turned 6 lanes of interstate freeway into a parking lot. Stop. And that is a thing. You got an agenda, you got a place to be, you got somewhere supposed to meet, you're hungry, you got to go to the bathroom. All this kind of thing can get under your skin. And I'm just looking around, and I looked off to my left, and this lady made eye contact with me, and she gets real serious, and she leans forward, and she goes this. That's the coolest thing I've ever seen. You want to talk about changing your brain? I was not focused on hungry. I'm in a world championship Rochambeau rock, paper, scissors, throwing paper and rock like I mean it. And it's safe, it's just fine. And then her lane opened up and just took her right out of my life. And I was a little sad because for a moment we had a connection. Human to human connection, and that's kind of rare. And rare is valuable. But I haven't let that stop. Every traffic light I come to, I'm Rochambeau. Come on. Most of the time, I get the reaction I'm looking for, which is basically delight. I have seen more smiles and more wonderful stuff going on because I'm doing this. Every once in a while, I find somebody that's afraid. They're in their fear base. Okay, and it, I've had people almost get a little mad at me. Some of them are a little contemptuous of me because they're looking at me like frivolous, light-minded. Oh Lord, he's got a ponytail. And I'm sad. I'm genuinely sad for just a minute. But then I get to the next light, and some dad has chosen that moment to model some good behavior for his kids, and it makes it all worth it. So again, I would like to leave you with this quote from a Chinese philosopher many, many thousands of years before the communists took over the Chinese culture. Lao Tzu, he said that if you keep going the way you are, you may end up where you're headed. And ladies and gentlemen, that scares me a little bit these days when I'm reading and hearing stuff. It does. It worries me a little bit. But it also motivates me. 50 years from now, our children will be in a classroom learning about these times. And they're either going to get the story told to them that we went through a rough patch, but we pulled ourselves out of it. We pulled through. Or they'll hear, that's where it all went wrong. That's where it all broke. One way or another. And all these choices I'm talking about is how we influence that in that direction. And I believe in all my heart that my beloved country, the United States of America, we can pull through. Thank you very much for your time. Oh, goodness. Thank you. Thank you so much. And God bless you for your efforts around the world and all of this. Thank you.